I love true crime, and I feel like with me liking to watch body cam videos, you can sort of gather that information. It's a guilty pleasure of mine, okay? I wanted to be a forensic science student, so stuff like this interests me. So, Menendez brothers case is trending again. Now, this is my first time hearing about this story because a year and a half ago, I think, Netflix announced that they were working with Ryan Murphy to make this series called Monster, Jeffrey Dahmer, and it was about, like, him, all the stuff, whatever. I'm super excited because I like watching stuff like this. I watched My Friend Dahmer. This is like this big Netflix production. Evan Peters is in it. They're doing their big one. It was good. They really did the victims bad. They twisted it a little bit too much, and I also really did not like Socks is Grabbing Me. Hey girl. At the end of the Dahmer series, they said that they were like trying to work on making this monument where the apartment buildings were. It's not going through. At the end of the show, it's like there's still no monument there. And I just didn't really like that because Netflix is such a big company. Why can't we put one together now? Like, if you're doing this whole nine and dramatizing some of their stories for Hollywood, which, you know, I guess you can understand that, but it's like, the story's already crazy enough. Why do you have to change it? Some of the victims or victims' families are still alive. A few weeks later, they announced that this was going to be a monsters series and that they were going to deep dive on other people that are considered monsters in history. They announced that they were renewed, I think, for like, do you see? They were renewed for I don't know how many more seasons, and they said that the Menendez brothers were going to be next. Lo and behold, I've never said that in my life. It came out a few weeks ago. I watched it because I was like, you know what? I was sat for the Dahmer series. Let me sit down for this. I don't know anything about the Menendez brothers. I'm going in this literally hearing about everything for the first time. Now, I was really surprised that they picked the Menendez brothers only because starting off with Dahmer, that is such a big heavy hitter. Why are we then going to the Menendez brothers? Because with Dahmer, obviously, he was crazy. He was a serial killer. Obviously, there's no questions asked. Now that I'm going into the Menendez brothers story, I'm thinking, okay, maybe they're obviously guilty. They're obviously innocent. I didn't realize that there was this big controversy about it. And also, I think it would be a really cool loop around because in the show they show, John Wayne Gacy got the same day that Dahmer got prosecuted, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. They have like some day correlation that they made it really stand out in the show. So when I saw that they were gonna come out with new ones, I was like, okay, next one is John Wayne Gacy because the connection was there, bam, which is a crazy connection. But they go to the Menendez brothers, so I'm very interested in this, and I'm watching this. I've never seen this before. Now, I do see all the backlash that it's getting on social media. A lot of people are saying that they are not showing the boys like victims and that they are showing them like sociopaths. Story completely wrong. And so I'm going into this. Will I be learning anything? I don't really know. I'll definitely have to do my own research after. But I'm still going to go into this trying to be non-biased as possible. So I sat and I watched this 9-part series within 2 days, I think. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. I'm honestly surprised. It took me like a day and a half, I would say. Because I was on the last episode. As I was starting it, I was like, okay, I'm going to save this for tomorrow morning for like a sweet little treat. I didn't. I ended up finishing it super late at night and I was crying. I wasn't expecting to cry, honestly. But I was just super surprised that this was a controversial case. And I don't think there's really anyone out there, I don't know, I've seen some comments, but I think the majority nowadays believes the Menendez brothers are the victims here. But with Dahmer, we all knew he was insane. We all knew that he was a serial killer. It was easy. But with this, not everyone agrees on what really happened. And that's what really threw me off for this. That's why I was also confused with the extreme jump he made. So I was very interested to see how he was going to make this work. When I was watching it, I even think from whenever I first pressed play, so the entire way through, I felt bad for that. Especially episode 4 and 5 with the solo shot, one take. Cooper, the guy who played Eric, deserves his flowers for that performance because holy crap, I just felt so much. The fact that it slowly zooms in the entire time, that was just felt so real. But throughout the entire show, I think the main thing, and even Eric broke out on it, is they don't like how Lyle is portrayed. He's portrayed as this like arrogant, loud, aggressive, not as aggressive as his dad, but like sort of controlling, power hungry type. Whenever that was first going on, like the first few scenes, I was like, okay, that's just how he is. If that's true or false, that didn't affect how I felt of them being victims. Like I still wasn't like, oh, he's an asshole. It was like, well, okay, think about the environment that he was in. They're saying that that's not how he acted, and that's totally fine. But as I'm watching this a little bit more, he's not this arrogant asshole all the time, though. Like, he is sort of chill, relaxed, like, helping his brother. Really, at the end of the day, there for his brother and him. Like, that's truly it. And it's stuff like that, like, whenever it was scenes with just them, or I felt bad for that. I did. I was just super confused when I'm watching this, because everyone's saying, like, they look like villains, they look like the bad guys, and I'm just like, I really don't understand where that's coming from. I truly don't, because 4 and 5 episode, oh my goodness, that was crazy. That was absolutely crazy. I'm starting to realize, wait a minute, they're, like, throwing everything in there. Like, they were showing the parents being super nice, and then they were showing the parents be super mean, exactly how the boys described them, and then they're showing the boys being totally money hungry, and then they show them being victims, and then I'm like, wait a minute. Each episode is curated from a different point of view. They're showing the public's point of view, they're showing the boys' point of view, the parents' point of view, family point of view. They're showing you everything. They're giving you all the information that was basically received from this case and basically letting you make your own decision. That's what I realized. Now, I understand anger can come from, like, okay, why spread these rumors when they're clearly not true? What this series was trying to do was just portray what it was like at the time. Like, anything that I talked to my parents about it, I talked to my brother about it, and they said the same thing. Like, that's stuff that they heard, but they don't really know. Like, they don't really know. So it's giving it to you as if you're hearing the story again. And I honestly think I really like that about the show. You know what? I've seen it from the other point of view. I've seen it where they think you're money hungry, and guess what? I don't care. I am going to cry listening to your confessional on episode 5. I can't get over that. I'm going to cry. The final scene, they were waking up in the middle of the night in jail. They're already on different ends, okay? They're already upset about that. They get up, it's time to transfer you. They're like, wait, where are you taking me? And they're like, we're taking you to prison. And they're like, okay. They see their brother getting in another vehicle, and they're like, oh, they're probably transporting us separately. They're driving. They're looking at each other at one point. Oh, how sweet. And then the vans turn the opposite directions. Oh my god, I don't think you realize the tears that swelled up in my eyes, and I was just like, dude, what? And they had not been reunited for 20 years after that? 22? And mostly because moments before that, they're, like, asking the lawyer, like, okay, they didn't get the death penalty. Are we at least taking that as a win? And she was like, well, you know what? I'm glad that they'll at least be in prison together. Like, they'll have each other. And then seconds later, they're like, ma'am, we cannot trust them together. Stop. And also, don't even get me started on that lady that had a heart attack in the juror. I'm not saying she deserved it. She didn't. But she was pissing me off. Like, she was literally like, I am not moving my stance. You guys are going to, or else I'm not budging. I'm literally not budging. And then that guy came through and saved them, and that's a real thing. In my research after that really happened, they haven't proved anything else to be aggressive, you know, anyone that's testified for them. So let's be nice on them. Like, seriously. And that takes me into the next thing. Like, I can't tell if certain things are fabricated or not. Lyle telling people to lie for them, was that real? First, I was like, wait, are the voice things? Because him getting voice recorded, oh my god, voice recorded. And I was at first like, wait, is that part even real? And oh my gosh, it was. There's so many layers to this. It's like an onion. It's so... But watching the show, I still felt so bad for that. And I think that with the title Monsters, you think, okay, you see Monsters, Dahmer's story, Lyle and Eric Menendez story. You think it's talking about them being the monsters. I think with this show, it literally gives you everything and is like, you decide who the monsters are. Is it the boys or is it the parents? And I also think that there is a part of unseriousness in this show that is also giving, they're not being so serious about them parents being the victim. Like, there were certain things that I could tell was so over dramatized. They're talking about how one of them has a bruise on the top of their mouth and a doctor testified for that, blah, blah, blah. State said, well, that bruise could be from anything. That could be with an object in his mouth and he falls over. It cuts to the actor of playing, I think it was, I don't know which one it was, and I apologize for not knowing, walking with a popsicle in his mouth and falling. I was like, did they really just put that in there? Like, imagine being like, we have to film this 5-second scene for B-roll, and this is what you have to do. So that was like, it was a little silly goofy. There's abuse stories from these kids. There's abuse stories from people that know him. This kid has a bruise on his mouth and you're just trying to say, oh, it could be anything. It really could be anything. Yeah, it could, but you know, hey, 1 + 1 = 2, not 3. So, hello, wake up. It sort of brought a little bit of silly goofy to the other people's point of view. You know what I mean? Because I was like, yeah, exactly. Silly. Has a popsicle in his mouth and trips. The scene of them on the bus after Eric testified and they're just arguing with each other, that's so sibling core, like the way that they're fighting, and it's just like, nice to see at the end of it that they love each other at the end of it. Each fuck up that each of them makes, we're like, getting through this. So there were some things that was like, okay. Like whenever Eric is like, I'm not gay, and he's like, well, you fucked us. And, like, Lyle begging for dimes. It was just so funny. Like, whenever he's just shoving more dimes and he's like, wait, trying to keep talking. He's like, wait, do you have another dime? And then the guy's like, dude, what? And he trades $100 for 9 dimes. And he asks someone to send him money. And they send him $50. And he goes, no, I need dimes. And it was so unserious. And I don't know if that happened. But it's also, like, relatable still. Like, it's like, okay, he's kind of real for that. I don't know if that sort of ties into people saying how he was portrayed poorly. I don't think it was. I don't look at him and think like, oh, what an arrogant person, blah, blah, blah. No, I look at him like, he's real. He's a human being. Like, he's not used to that environment. You know, he's like, what is going on? And he's like asking for tanner, shampoo, all this stuff. And Erica's like, it was definitely overdone. And towards the end of the show, they sort of started leaning towards, like, when they were in the trial, they started leaning more into the, are they killers? Are they crazy? Not too much, not heavy, but it was, you could see the little bias. That's how it was. They were sort of showing us how the jury portrayed them. And I mentioned earlier that in Dahmer, they tie it back in a little bit with, like, the other serial killers. They mentioned John Wayne Gacy. In this show, they freaking mention O.J. Simpson. There's no way that this is real. Whenever I saw O.J. Simpson literally be Eric's cell neighbor, I looked it up immediately because I was like, there is no way this shit keeps happening. There is no way that these monumental trial events, stuff like this, tie in with each other. That is so weird. They have a conversation. He's like, don't go with Robert Shapiro. He screwed us over as a lawyer. And to tie it all back in, Kim Kardashian just met with Eric and Lyle. And who's Kim Kardashian? Rob Kardashian. Is that his name? I don't know. The Kardashians' dad. He was O.J. Simpson's lawyer. Which, speaking of lawyers, I absolutely loved their new lawyer. I love her so much. She was giving the mom vibes that they needed. It really felt like she was a blessing to them because she was like, boys, you need to pull it together. And I just hate that other journal guy. I don't know who that guy is, but I see him in other movies, and he's always that, like, annoying-ass villain. She just warmed my heart so much, and it made me so happy. I hope that they stay in touch. I really do. I hope that they are still connected. And it was like the mother they never had. Oh, you know, why'd you go after your mother? Is mainly your father. Well, the mother was complacent. We all know that. The mother was super complacent. The mother knew. The mother did shit of her own. She would say that she hated them. She said, you ruined my life. And it sucks that, like, they kept saying the abuse excuse in the show, and I'm sure that was real back in the day too. It's valid. That pissed me so off when they were going into the second trial. They were like, try not to bring up the abuse as much. Hello? And the fact that legitimately the jury was hung, split down the middle of women believing them, men not believing them, it's just so sad that, like, if it was the Menendez sisters, or if it was, you know, Lyle looking out for his sister, Eric looking out for his sister, it would play out a lot differently. I also lightly want to touch on the incest theory. There was one part of an episode, and it was one of the last ones, and it was when that weirdo journal guy was talking about it. I just think it was showing that there were so many rumors, there were so many theories of it. Back to the not, like, making it funny, but, like, sort of dramatized it to the point where it's like, okay, but, like, this wasn't real. There was not enough for me to think it was taking over the show. It was barely mentioned. It was barely touched on. Now, the argument maybe is then it shouldn't be touched on at all because it wasn't true. That then ties into the multiple point of views, the multiple theories that they're trying to show. But I didn't think that they were hammering it as hard as people were making it out to be. If I never saw a tweet about it after, I wouldn't have thought about it. And I think if I wouldn't have mentioned it in this video, you wouldn't have thought about it. And if you did, I don't know, you just have a different perspective of it than I do. I had a blank slate of this. Obviously they didn't. Roll that out. Bye. Boy, bye. Like, we're not believing that. No one is. Who is? And Cooper said it. It's hard to have the worst part of your life projected on the big screen. Projected into this big movie series, this big whole doing their big one on Netflix, promoted as heck. But yeah, at the end of the show, I think they give you enough information that you can literally form your own opinion. And I know it's sort of like, okay, well, why don't you just give it to us straight? That even though they are letting you form your own opinion, the right one feels obvious to me. And I feel like it would feel obvious to a lot of people watching it. I think the majority of people watching it are going to see the point of view that they're not the monsters. The parents are the monsters. Even in the show, like, it's a small little detail that is mentioned enough for you to remember that there's this boat day that they were going on, and they were convinced that their parents were going to kill them on this boat day. And the whole jail separating scene happens, and then it cuts to the parents on the boat. But it shows it as if their parents were normal. It shows it like their parents are like, hey boys, come on over, hang out with us. And the boys are like, all right, we're ready, like, we're planning it. They also said, which is insane. Real life, the boat trip was switched from daytime to nighttime. That's what made them suspicious. The show was it was in daytime. I don't think the Menendez brothers, Eric and Lyle Menendez, are monsters at all. They've been in prison for 32 years, I believe. Let them out, you know? Like, same reason why they didn't get death penalty. They're not violent. I hope, like, something can happen this year, next year. I watched 3.5 hours of Eric's first time on the stand, an hour and a half of Lyle's first time on the stand, and I'm now about nearly 3 hours in of Eric's second time on the stand. And I think I like watching those videos because I like finding out the small details. Like, did Lyle actually mail people saying, hey, lie for us? Like, that was a big part to me. Like, that's the one question I would like answered. I haven't gotten that answered yet. So let me know if you do know. But while I've been watching the real trial footage, I noticed that the actors could have shown a bit more emotion on the stand. And I really do think that they were trying to lean a little bit more bias for them being guilty point of view. But I just think right there, when they're on the stand, you need to drop all perspectives and just show the raw truth. I think watching them in real life on the stand compared to the show, the actors did a good job. I think Cooper did, the guy who played Eric. I think the guy who played Lyle, Nicholas, I think he did a little too crazy. He got them fucked with the mic. I wonder if that's true, if Eric's stand moment actually fucked them. That's what I want to know. And I also think that the way that they're answering the questions in the trial videos, it's just too fast. Yes, I know how I felt, this, that, everything. Everything lines up that it's like, what they're giving is the truth. They're giving the truth. Netflix is releasing another documentary. And it's by the Menendez brothers themselves. And with all the questions I still have, I'm really looking forward to this because is this an episode part thing? Is this an hour long? Like, what is this? I'm really, really, really excited, and it comes out on October 7th. So I'm excited to hear them talk about it because quite literally only like 1 or 2 interviews of them. That lady that was so mean to them. Bye. Girl. And Lyle graduated college. That makes me so, like, that makes my heart so warm. He wants to make prison reform more like a college campus, like, that you can actually form a life in there because, oh my gosh, another scene, Eric is talking to his therapist and he's like, okay, we're going to appeal, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and the therapist is like, I'm so happy that you're thinking about that and I'm glad that you're optimistic about it, but Eric, your life is in here. I would like you to set goals in here because this is where you're going to be. That made me spiral. That made me spin because I was like, what? That's so crazy. And I know you hear life in prison, obviously you think about that, but it's like, wow, you really need to just create and curate your own life in there when you have life. Let me know what you thought about the series below. I know some people didn't watch it out of respect, thinking that it really portrayed them horribly. I don't think it showed them too bad. It was just giving you all the point of views. I think that's something a lot of people aren't realizing in that. And whether that's right or wrong, that's up for you to decide. You watch the show, you can gather the monsters are Kitty and Jose Menendez. And Eric and Lyle Menendez should be free. And stay tuned for my follow-up with the documentary. And let me know any other cases that you want me to talk about because I will do any deep dive. I'm so interested. So I hope you enjoyed this week's video. I will see you next week. As always, stay healthy, stay hydrated. Peace out. I love you guys. Bye.